This episode contains descriptions of domestic violence and a good amount of swearing. Listener discretion is advised.
I think he told me he was going to eradicate my ass. Yeah, he said a few gnarly things.
In 2008, Melissa Benson was enjoying co-parenting her kids in Casper, Wyoming, but also liked having her independence.
Basically, I was just living life. I pretty much was raising a couple of my kids, and they decided to go live with their dad. So I was pretty much by myself after that, just living with a friend. Things were, I wouldn't say they were like I had the easiest, route. I was still trying to make ends meet and, support my kids still. So there was some challenges with that because, dealing with teenagers can be challenging.
One day, she was at a friend's barbecue and needed to hit up the liquor store.
The liquor store was so close that we were just able to walk. So I was walking down to get ice and to get myself a beer, to be honest. And so while I was walking, I met Sean and his friend. We just started talking, and then from there, that night, we ended up talking. And then when the barbecue was over, my daughter ended up driving me, and I met them at a bar.
Sean was LaShawn King, and the two started dating. What was the early relationship like?
Really like a gentleman. I mean, he really was somebody that I thought, wow, this guy's really nice, I stood over sometimes. He would make me breakfast. He would welt sometimes at night and get home in the morning, and he'd bring me a rose, just those simple things that really meant something. I think that made an impression upon what I thought about him. And then I moved in.
And why did you move in with him?
Well, at the time when I was seeing him, I had told him I was going to start looking for my own place. I was living with a good friend of mine, and just because I knew my friend was going to be leaving eventually. And then he said, Melissa, you could live here and we could split the rent. No strings attached if you don't want to, or if you do, that's up to you. But, just to help you out and we could help each other, I said, okay. I said, I think that could work. Because we got along, so I didn't see an issue with that.
So Melissa moved in. In closer proximity, she noticed a few strange things. Her bags seemed to have been gone through, and he made some remarks she just brushed off as teasing. But after living together for about 6 weeks, something happened Melissa couldn't write off so easily.
What happened was I told him my daughter was coming, and we were going to go eat. And he got upset, and I was like, well, you can come, you're more than welcome to come. You could see the look in his eyes, and he didn't really say much. He stood quiet, but he was always really quiet, but you could just see he was angry. And I just kind of looked, and my daughter showed up, and he goes down and he's telling me, yeah, you're probably going to see some guy. And I said, no, I'm not. I was like, my daughter's here. My daughter was in the car, and he said, I don't appreciate you lying to me. And my daughter said, my mom's not lying to you. We're going to eat at Flying J's. I have my kids in the car. And he proceeded to ignore my daughter. And then that's when he tried to hit me.
This is Live to Tell, the podcast where I talk to some of the bravest people who have been through the most horrifying things and lived to tell the tale. I'm Caitlin Van Mall.
My daughter was like, don't touch my mom. She said, you're wrong. She said, I don't know what your problem is. And then, so we go and eat, and he calls me and says, hey, Melissa, I want to tell you I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I really want to talk with you, and I'll tell, your daughter I'm sorry. I don't know what I was thinking. He said, I just really, really was wrong.
Did he ever give, like, a reason why he thought you were seeing someone else?
No, he never gave me a reason. I don't know if he just truly, really believed that. I just don't know, but I did not do anything in the relationship, especially at the beginning, to make him think that I was seeing somebody.
Melissa forgave him, but it wasn't the last time he lost his temper. Police were called to their apartment on several occasions for domestic disputes, but Melissa had hope that LaShawn would go back to being the sweet man who would bring her a rose after work. I hate to ask this because I feel like it is asked of a lot of survivors of domestic violence, but why didn't you find somewhere else to live? Why didn't you leave?
Yeah, you know what? Please don't feel bad to ask that, because that's a good question. And I know people say, "Oh, like you're stupid or you're dumb." You know, I'll be honest with you. When you think that somebody can change and you have false hope, I hoped that, things would change. And it was always something that made me think that, yes, he's going to change. And people are like, well, you could have got out early. You're right. Absolutely. It's not as easy to see clearly that sometimes not just loving somebody, but having this false hope that, that they're going to change, that can be really obscure to the reality of the situation.
But Melissa did get to her breaking point.
So he had a dog. I had to go to work. He went to work. He put the dog, it was a puppy, put the dog in the bathroom. So he didn't want it pooping everywhere. And so I get home and I opened the door and the puppy had tore up the bathroom because he was trying to get out of the bathroom. And so he tore up the linoleum. So when he got home, I told him, I just said, hey, I said, I let so-and-so out, but I want you to know he tore up the bathroom. And he just got mad. And he just basically blamed me, told me it was my fault, and told me I was a dirty bitch and that I was a no good bitch and I'm no good, I'm worthless. And it's my fault that puppy had to be in there. And I just didn't say nothing. At first, and I just finally said, that's not my fault, Sean. I said, I didn't put the puppy in there. And then that's when he got mad. And I remember him hitting me and I fell against the wall and fell by the toilet. And he proceeded to tell me, give me your hands. And he ended up taping my hands and then he put duct tape around my mouth. I guess he had a knife. He had his own, like a pocket knife. And then that's when he pulled out the knife and he said, you think you're real smart, don't you? He said, yeah, bitch. He goes, nobody's going to be able to find you, your family, your kids, nobody. He goes, because I got the perfect way. I'm going to get rid of you. And he proceeded to take that knife and he ran it down my face and took it from one ear basically to the other side of the ear, down through my throat. And he said, I'm going to mess up that pretty face too, so nobody wants you. He goes, but I'm going to kill you too. And I couldn't talk because I had duct tape on my mouth. There's not really much I could say. And I just kind of shook my head like, no. And then he would laugh and say, oh, no, this ain't the time. But there's going to be the time. He goes, this ain't the time, but I'm going to do away with you. Nobody's going to know. He finally took the duct tape off of my mouth and he took some of the duct tape off of my hands and I removed the rest. And it was late at night. And that's when I told myself, that's the last time. I said, when he goes to work tomorrow, I'm not going to go into work. I'm going to pack my stuff and I'm leaving.
But leaving his apartment didn't mean Melissa was free of him.
I would get calls from him and I worked 2 jobs at the time too. I was working in that unemployment office, and I was cleaning buildings that my aunt had a contract. He would show up to that cleaning building. He showed up to the unemployment office. I actually went to the self-help center during that time that I left him.
The Self-Help Center is a nonprofit in Wyoming that helps and provides services to people experiencing domestic violence.
And I asked how to file a stalking order. And it takes a lot to get a stalking order. It's not as easy as people think, not at all. But I proved my case to show he stalked me 3 different ways. And so they issued the stalking order. So I went to work feeling like I did something right and I was going to be a little bit safer because they were going to serve him. But for some reason, I always got this excuse that we can't serve him. He's never home. He's never home. I don't know. I found it hard to believe, but at the same time, maybe it was true. But I don't know, because I felt like I felt like the police had let me down when I really truly decided to get out.
LaShawn did show up to her work again, but was escorted away by police. After that incident in 2011, Melissa didn't hear from him for 2 weeks until...
I'm gonna take your fucking life, dude. I bullshit you not.
And he called me and he threatened me. About a 15-minute phone call, and he threatened me several times.
Melissa recorded the call.
I'm gonna kill you, my son. Hey, God, you my brother-in-law? I'm gonna kill you, dog. I'm gonna kill your bitch ass, dude.
This goes on for 15 minutes, with Melissa hardly saying anything. He threatens to kill her over and over. But the next time Melissa heard from him, it was quite a different mood.
He said, hey, I'm going back to Detroit. I got a ticket and I'm going to go back. And he goes, can you come and meet with me? And can we go have something to eat? I really want to sit down and talk with you. And once again, I said, yeah. So I went and I took him to Wendy's and we sat and we got lunch. We had a dog. That wasn't the same dog that made the mess in the bathroom, but it was a different dog. Her name was Bonnie. So he said, hey, but you have your stuff still in the apartment and you have the dog, because when I left him, I left my furniture, I left everything. I took my computer, my clothes, and that was it.
LaShawn's friend Ep8 was watching Bonnie the dog at the time. It was decided that Melissa would pick up LaShawn that night, and they would go meet Ep8 at a movie theater so Melissa could get Bonnie and LaShawn and Ep8 could see a movie.
So I ended up going and picking him up, and that's when I drive up to the movie theater. And when I drive up, our Red Lobster had burnt down and they were rebuilding it right there across from the theater. And he wanted me to park there, but something told me no. So then I just started feeling well about the situation. And I was like, oh, well, where's Ep8? Is he parked already? Oh, yeah, I think he's already parked.
At this point, it's important to note that Melissa has 2 cell phones, one of which she thinks LaShawn doesn't know about.
He took one of my phones away and acted like he was looking at it. But I knew in my heart that he was going to keep that phone. I felt it. He tells me to park, and I remember it was some premiere going on, like it was like a new movie, and a lot of people were there. And then if I was looking in front of me is a workout place, and I heard this thud on my baseboard, and I knew it.
The thud she heard was LaShawn picking up a sledgehammer he had hidden on the side of the passenger seat.
But I didn't want him to know I was afraid. So when I heard the thud, he turned and looked at me, and I remember the last thing that I could clearly see is lady running on a treadmill. And I remember him turning around and he's looking at me and he looked so evil. And I wanted to get out. So I tried to get out of the vehicle. And I remember trying to open that door and he pulled me by the back of my hair. And the next thing I remember is my back being arched and him having my hair. He took the 4-pound sledgehammer and he hit me in my left eye. And then he did it again. And then the third time I put my hand up because I remember seeing silver. And I put my hand up to block it and he hit my hand with that hammer. And then I told myself I had to get out. And he had me by my hair and he followed me all the way from the passengers through the driver's side outside with my holding my hair. And I remember standing there and I'm like, God, somebody's got to come. Somebody's got to save me. Somebody's got to see this. And nobody came. It was, so he was telling me, shut the fuck up, bitch. Cause I was crying and he was like, shut the fuck up, bitch. And I was like, okay, I'll be quiet. So I was whimpering and I remember he was like, get the fuck in, bitch, get the fuck in this van. And I said, okay, I'll get in. Hold on. And I was telling myself, I can't get in the van. If I get in the van, I'm dead. Because I have no way out. There's no latch in the back to escape through the back door. There's nothing. And so I remember pushing my body weight against him because he was forcing me. And I remember my jacket coming off my shirt and just blood. I just remember I was in my bra and I could taste the blood just dripping down the back of my throat. Just the taste of it. And then finally he said if I didn't get in the van, he was going to hit me in the head with the hammer. So I took my time and I made excuse after excuse. And so when I got in, finally he slammed the door on my leg. And I remember that. And then I said, okay. He said, get the fuck up, bitch. I said, okay. And I put back on my bloody shirt. And I remember leaving my jacket right behind him, the driver's seat. So he gets back into the van and he comes through the aisle because they're bucket seats, and he takes the hammer and he proceeds to hit me in my back because he said I wasn't moving fast enough. And so I went all the way to the back, and that's when I knew I had that phone in my jacket.
LaShawn got in the driver's seat and started to drive.
I didn't have no dash lights because the vehicle got messed up a long time ago, so it didn't have no more dash lights. So it was pitch black. I got up from the back of the long bench and walked slowly, kind of crawled, I guess, and started feeling for my jacket. And I knew where I was at. And he told me, what are you doing, bitch? You're looking for that phone, aren't you? And I said, no, I'm looking for my jacket to show you I don't have the phone. And I found my jacket. I'm like, oh my God, I found the phone. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I took myself I sat back in the very back again. So I opened the phone, I dialed 911, and it says you have 5% left on the battery. And I remember my hands were so bloody. There was so much blood that it slid out of my hand when I called 911. And he goes, what are you doing, bitch? And I said, nothing. I'm just laying here.
Her call went through to the operator, but Melissa couldn't say anything.
911, what is the address of your emergency? 911, what is the address of your emergency?
And I'm just crying profusely. And I'm like, help me. I remember just the sound of my voice. It sounded horrible.
911, can you hear me?
Blood everywhere. Okay, so I'll lay down.
Honestly, it just sounded horrible to know that I couldn't even talk to this lady the way I needed to. So I make that call and we're on probably about a 10, 11-minute call. And the whole time I could not say hardly anything to this lady. And I could tell she was frustrated.
Where are you, ma'am?
And no fault of her own. No fault of her own. I started driving and I could hear her and I heard her say,
Where are you at, ma'am?
Where am I at?
where are you at? And I said, hey, babe, where are we at? And that's when he goes, you got that fucking phone, don't you?
Yeah, we're going for Glenbrook. No, I don't got no phone. No, I don't have the phone. They told me. Okay.
And I said, no, I don't have the phone. And so I said, we're going out to, we're by the refinery, aren't we, in Evansville? I said, we're going out to Glen Rock. And that was the last I could really say anything to that lady, honestly. And then he told me, shut the fuck up. And he told me if I didn't shut the fuck up, he was going to hit me, and he was going to hit me and crack me with that sledgehammer. And I remember him driving, and he keeps going, and he drives up to a water tower. And I said, I'm so afraid if he finds this phone, I'm dead. I had a basket in my van with all my stuff, my computer, my papers, and I tried to hide the phone in that basket. I couldn't see really hardly anymore. I really couldn't see out of neither eye. So it was hard for me to tell how far I hid that phone down in that basket. I couldn't tell. He parks a car and he says, bitch, you got that phone? And he starts coming, he's like, move over here. And you can hear him through the call telling him he's gonna hurt me, kill me. I mean, he comes and he's telling me to move, and I'm like, God, man, he's gonna find the phone. I'm so afraid. And so I start trying to go through the basket with him, and you can hear all that rumbling, all that 911 call, you can hear all that.
Can you hear me?
It's me and him basically racing to the basket to try to get the phone. I wanted to get it, and so he couldn't find it, but it didn't happen that way. I couldn't see. So he found the phone.
He hit her a few times, and then he took the phone battery out. Melissa had lost her lifeline.
I lost hope at that point. And that's when I said, God, please do not let me suffer. Just let him kill me fast. Do not let me suffer. And I pleaded and said, I hurt really bad. LaShawn, I called him Sean, but I said, I hurt really, really bad. I'm bleeding. So he ends up driving to this hotel, and we stood at the hotel for a minute, and I pleaded with him to get help. I told him, go in and get a room, and we won't have to tell nobody. Nobody has to know, Sean. And he said, they're gonna fucking know. Look, you're all fucked up. So then the only thing he asked was, how much gas do we have in here? And I lied to him. I knew I put gas that day. We had enough, but I lied. But I felt from the distance, from where we drove to and the time we stopped, I felt he went to a gas station called the Red Eagle.
This was bad news for Melissa. She knew that there weren't any businesses around this gas station that would be open at that time. And that meant there was no one around to help her. On top of that, Melissa's face was so swollen, she could barely see out of one eye. So running just seemed out of the question. But just being conscious had thrown a wrench in LaShawn's plans.
So he goes in, he puts gas, and then he puts gas in this gas can too. Because the original plan was he thought I would pass out and he was going to burn me alive.
Did he say that to you?
Yeah, 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 yeah. I said, babe, I don't want you to go to prison. I promise I won't say nothing. He said, you're worth going to prison for. That's what he told me. And that's when he said, yeah, he goes, you know what? He goes, bitch, he goes, I'm gonna burn you alive.
He kept driving, and Melissa kept pleading, and he kept telling her she was stupid and to shut up. He drove them to their old apartment and ran inside to get something. Again, Melissa knew there was no one awake or nearby to run to, so she didn't take the risk. He returned and started driving again. But meanwhile, the police were looking for them. They'd identified Melissa from her phone number and used cell phone towers to ping for her location.
He said, fuck, man, the fucking cops. I said, oh my God. I said, they're going to save me. They're going to save me. So then, I don't know what made him, but he stopped. He pulled he pulled over into a big parking lot. It was an oil company. And it was their parking lot. And I said, oh my God. And they tell him on the intercom, the speaker they use, they said, driver, pull the keys out of the ignition, throw them out and get down. And he wouldn't do it. So they told him again. And he still didn't do it. So the next thing I hear is, and to me that sounds like a gun. That sounds like a shotgun. I said, man, I'm gonna die. They don't know I'm in here. I'm gonna die. But Mr. King turns around, and I finally sit up, and he tells me, "Are you gonna tell on me?" And I said, no, I'm not going to tell on you. And then the third time they tell him to get out, and he finally opens the door and gets out and lays on the ground, I guess. And the next thing I know is officer opens the right side of the door, the right side of the sliding door, and sees me, and he says, get an ambulance. He fucked her up. Get an ambulance. And then Detective Tuma comes and opens the left side of the door, and he tells me who he is. And he said, we've been looking for you. They put me on a flat, stretcher. It was more of a flat board. And they transported me to the hospital there in Casper, Wyoming. My eye was shut so bad. They had to open up my left eye where the sledgehammer had impacted it because it broke out. What it did is it shattered my whole orbital floor. So that cheekbone, it busted all of that. That was completely busted. And so my eye basically, it was deformed. I told the doctor just to open it, and he said, well, we need to give you pain meds, and I refused them. And the reason I did is because I wanted to make sure that everything I gave to the police was true and correct and to the best of my ability, and without any type of narcotic compromising my mindset, because they were taking my statement when they were looking at me. And so I told them, no, they couldn't give me pain meds. They had to just open my eye. Honestly, Caitlin, I think I was in so much shock by the time I got there that I think I took myself somewhere else so I wouldn't feel pain.
Melissa didn't have health insurance, and that, unfortunately, meant she had to leave the hospital earlier than she would have liked.
I think I was in the hospital for 2 days.
Oh.
And they were going to release me 5 hours after I was admitted. I was admitted into as a no-pub, and this lady wanted to release me. I got up in that room at 5 o'clock in the morning. She wanted to release me at 10 a.m. that morning. And my cousin, who's an occupational therapist, said, if you release her, we will sue you, because she is in no shape to be released today.
After she was released from the hospital, Melissa tried to see an ear, nose, throat doctor in her area, but they canceled the appointment.
They said they couldn't see me. Don't know why. Don't know. I'm assuming because whatever the crime because I didn't have the money.
She did finally get to see a doctor in Colorado who told her she needed to have reconstructive surgery. But Melissa didn't know how she was going to pay for this very necessary surgery.
I talked to the victims crime comp, and they said they do help pay for things, and they helped me, look at paying that surgeon. They only pay $15,000. They only cover $15,000 worth of medical, or period. That's all you get, $15,000 all the way across the board. Anything you're paid to give you some type of payment to live on, to pay for your medical bills. That amount of medical expense was way beyond that. It's over $100,000.
The $15,000 was enough to get the surgery, but Melissa still had to cut some corners.
I went in and I couldn't do it inpatient because they wanted to keep me in the hospital, but I didn't have no money. So we did it outpatient. So the doctor went in and did the surgery. I was in surgery for about 3 hours and came out, recovered for about an hour, got up. We rented a hotel, me, my sister, and my daughter. And I rested in that hotel room for one day, for that night. That day to that night. We woke up the next morning because we didn't have money. So we couldn't afford to be staying in a hotel near Cherry Creek. It's expensive.
While she was healing physically, Melissa wanted to see a therapist to help her with the emotional aftermath. But it was hard to find someone who hadn't heard her story from the press.
When I went to the counseling, they already had the presumptions made because they had, they had everything already out in the newspapers, on the radio, and the information was wrong. Some of it was totally wrong. And, when I went in for my counseling, the first thing the lady said is, "You're afraid of Black people." Because he was a Black gentleman that did it. But I was like, my best friend is Black, my daughter's half Black. Like, what the hell? So I said, no way. No way, you cannot counsel me. And I told her, how would you know he was Black? Because you looked at a newspaper. No, because I told her any color could have did it. I'm not afraid of Black people. It's not the color, it's the person. So I chose not to go to counseling. And so what I did is I read a lot. I prayed a lot. I read a lot. I read the Bible. I prayed. I went to church. I can't credit just myself, and I'm going to give credit to I give credit to my kids, but I give credit to my cousin. Excuse me.
No, take your time, please.
It hits home. This one does. It hits home. Because she's passed now. She just passed last year. But man.
So sorry.
Yeah, she was with me through thick and thin, boy. Thick and thin. I give credit to my cousin, Bonnie Laura. She helped me a lot, man. She would, when she found out I got her, man, she drove from a town called Cody, Wyoming to Casper, and she dropped everything. And she was with me from day one. She would come and get me. She would be like, "Come on, we're not sitting in this house. Let's go, bud." She'd take me everywhere. Everywhere. We went to community functions. We went out to bars. We'd meet friends. I couldn't drink, but she kept me alive. Like, in that sense, she kept me. God, she kept me alive.
And it was actually Bonnie's sister, Sue, that helped Melissa find a new path when she struggled to find work after the assault.
I already had a master's in business administration when it happened to me. And I had a hard time getting a job there. I'd go for interviews, and I got a job landed one time. They said, yeah, come back for the drug test, but not a problem. So I call to find out where I'm going to take the drug test at. And the guy answered, the main manager, he said, were you now involved in a confrontation not too long ago? And I said, no, not really. And I said, I wouldn't call it a confrontation. He said, well, we can't hire you. He goes, we have to take that up with our big corporate office.
Even though you were a victim of a crime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. That was so frustrating. So frustrating. So my cousin, told me, why don't you go back to school? And I said, do I really want to do this? I don't know. Because here I am, 41 years of age. Do I really want to go back to school?
Yeah.
That's hard. I went back. I got in the program, and I started doing the program.
While Melissa was studying to start a new life as an occupational therapist, she still had to deal with her old one. LaShawn King had pleaded not guilty to attempted murder, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, and kidnapping. Melissa testified at his trial.
That was the hardest thing I think I had to do, besides survive, but that was probably the second hardest thing. I remember telling myself, I'm not going to cry, I'm going to be so strong. That didn't happen. I broke. I really, it was hard. It was hard because you have all these newspapers and these radio stations and just people in general you don't know, and your whole life is laid out. Your whole life, like your dirt, the good, the bad. You're fending for yourself against somebody who literally tried to take your life. So it's kind of a double whammy. He wouldn't look at me. I wanted him to look at me. I really did. Because I wanted to show him what it looks like for somebody to survive at the hand of a sadistic person. There was a carbon, it was a board, it kind of stuck out on the wall, and I said, I'm going to use that as my focal point because I had to have something to focus so I wouldn't look at him so much. And being questioned, I felt like I was just like each piece of clothing was coming off of me, and I was going to be bare naked for all to see, all to know. And at times I felt humiliated, yes. So that was the hard part. And I broke. And I remember his public defender saying that he didn't do this to me, that somebody else did, and he was trying to help me. And I told him, I remember looking at the board and I'm crying, and I tried to gather my composure, and I said, I beg to differ. And then he would tell me, do you need to stop, Miss Benson? Do you need a break? And I would close my eyes and I would let the tears stream down, and I would still stay looking at that board, and I would tell him, no, please continue. I told him, because I wanted to get it over with.
But the judge called a break anyway.
We walked out of the courtroom, and the victim's crime, Betty, she works for the DA's office. Her and another gal, and I think the attorney, they walked me to a room, and they said, are you going to be okay? And I told them, no, I can't do it. I told them, I can't finish. I said, I don't think I can go back in. And they said, you got this, Melissa, you're almost done. You're halfway there. And I said, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. But I knew it was writing on me, because if I couldn't finish it, I knew he would get away with a lesser charge. And I knew that I would not be able to speak for other people who have died before me, who are still in this situation, and those who have gotten out.
Yeah.
So I did. I gathered my composure, and I said, okay, I can do this. So I walked back in and I finished it. And I went right back to school the same day. Matter of fact, the day of trial, I went to school, took a test, finished some clinicals, and went and testified. I had to stay strong. How the testimony affected me was I knew that it was all for a greater being than just myself.
Yeah.
It was just about me no more.
How do you feel about forgiveness?
Man, you know, for me personally, I think forgiveness is the key to making sure that you are at peace and you have happiness. Yeah, it's definitely what has kept me where I'm at today, in terms of being happy, living life, moving forward, being able to not judge other people or other men for what one man did. I forgive him the night he did it. I had to. Yeah, absolutely. I don't wish no harm, no foul to him.
King was found guilty on all 4 charges. Melissa was asked to read a victim impact statement at the sentencing.
That was hard, and I broke again. They asked me if I wanted somebody to read it, and I said, no, I'm going to finish it. I hated that I broke because like I said, I wanted to be stronger, but I found out strength isn't, just because I broke and cried doesn't mean I wasn't strong.
Yeah. Did he react at all?
No. Mm-mm. He wouldn't even look at me. He wouldn't look at me.
Didn't that frustrate you?
Absolutely. It was, and I think that's another reason I broke, because I not only did I want him to look at me in trial, but I wanted him to see that you took something from me, but here I am, and I'm not as dumb as you thought I was going to be. I'm stronger than you anticipated.
King was sentenced to life without parole. How did you feel about his sentence?
I felt it was justified. You know, they say the only way he could get out is if he was commutated by a governor, and I don't ever foresee that happening. But I mean, overall, I'm satisfied with the sentence. I just reflect back and think how something so simple, like I told him, you made it into something so complex. It never had to be this way. And in the end, you didn't ruin my life. I mean, the other certain things that got detoured and ravished and had to be repaired. But in the end, you took your own life. You took your life.
After graduating with her occupational therapy degree, Melissa ended up moving to Texas to find work in her new field.
So I knew a friend here in Texas where I'm living, and we had been friends before I had met LaShawn. And anyways, we reconnected, and you know, it's a true saying, you don't know a good man until you've had a bad man. Mm-hmm. And I ended up dating him, and we were together, and unfortunately, you know, bless his heart, but he did die of cancer. But
I'm so sorry.
Yeah, it's so sad. I found something great, but you know what? God brings people into our lives for all different reasons, and it may be momentarily, it may be a lifetime. And I have an outlook about dating again. I'm just more cautious. There's red flags now that I can see. There's these, warning signs, and I'm very keen to those.
Today, Melissa is living the life she rebuilt after LaShawn King tried to take it away.
I've been living in Texas about 10 years. I'm single, of course, because my former boyfriend passed of cancer, but it's good. I do therapy. I do occupational therapy. I'm a director of a rehab department right now. So I run, in a nursing home, I run the rehab department, raising 2 of my grandsons. Their mom is here though now with them too, so that's great. It's been good. I just had a birthday, so
Happy birthday!
Thanks. I turned out big 54. Yeah, so I'm happy and just living life. And I'm writing a book, and I've been writing it, but I'm now about to take more time to finish my book.
Yeah. It's a process.
It is a process. It is. But I think it'll be well worth it in the end. And I hope some people will want to publish it, or even get some people who would like to review it and give me input on it. I'm looking for that too. I want to do more public speaking here though in Texas. Mm-hmm. I'd love to do that. It's kind of hard to find an outlet. I'm here to speak the truth. I'm here to hopefully one day help other women and men, because it happens to men too. And to help those kids that are suffering to watch the abuse. All I can do is give the truth and make sure that people understand that. Make it out. You can make it out alive. You can.
If you or someone you know would like information and resources for survivors of domestic violence, you can visit thehotline.org, call 1-800-799-SAFE or 1-800-799-7233, or text 88788. This is Live to Tell. I'm Caitlin Van Mall. You can follow the show on Instagram and TikTok at Live to Tell Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate, review, and subscribe. It really helps the show. I'll see you in 2 weeks.